Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning and welcome to a live edition, a Thursday edition of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank David Steele, voice of the Orlando Magic, for our introduction today. Today's Thursday. That means we'll have our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, second portion of today's program. We'll have Edgar Thompson. He went to the Trinity Thomas presser yesterday. We'll get his thoughts. She's gonna be like a student coach, going back and getting another master's, but also gonna try to prepare for the Olympic team as well. Don't forget, on all our different platforms, we're doing a little contest where you have supper with me at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We'll have a drawing. I want to say that drawing is going to be on August the 9th. So you got plenty of time and to get friends and family to follow our programs, and then we'll have somebody draw out of the hopper a name, and you get to chow down with us, and maybe the head ball coach will show up. Let's go to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, good morning. As we edge closer to SEC Media Days, Big 12 kicks it off next week, and then we'll have kind of a different conference every week, and Phil Steele is out, so we have Lindy Zathlon and Phil Steele. So you can tell by all that is that we are getting closer and closer to the season.
Yeah, there's no question. And Andy, I meant to mention this, that big win for Ben Shelton yesterday at Wimbledon. He advances to round 2. Brent, let's jump right into it. Have you gotten your Phil Steele magazine yet?
I do have it here with me, along with the other two, and it is. I mean, all these things are kind of comparable to some way. Steele's top 5: Georgia, Clemson, Michigan, Bama, and Ohio State. Florida State is number 8. LSU is number 9. That's no surprise. A&M is 12. He's a real believer in A&M, where Lindy's has got A&M at 30. So that the magazines, as they usually are, there is some differences in the top 25.
Yeah, they are. You talked about SEC Media Days a couple of weeks away. What day do the Gators go?
They go on, let's see, well, I believe they're on Wednesday. I'll double check that. I know Saban and Pittman of Arkansas are on Wednesday too. And then you've got, on the first day, you've got Brian Kelly, Drinkwith, and Jimbo Fisher at that time. Hugh Freeze and Kirby Smart are both on Tuesday. So I'm almost sure that Wednesday will be Napier.
Yeah. Part of your power poll, talk about the best receivers in the Southeastern Conference, best receiving group. I agree 1,000% who's at number 1. For the Gators, they're way down there. A lot of young guys are going to rely on this year. I like them, but you agree A&M is by far the best receiving corps in the SEC, maybe in America.
Yeah, and it frankly is not even close. Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad, Anaya Smith, those are guys who can do just about everything. So Connor Weekman will get them the ball. And remember that this is Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator with maybe the best receiving corps in the SEC. Georgia was second. And again, this is Saturday down south. give them credit for this. And Georgia's greatly enhanced by Dominic Lovett coming over from Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, LSU, Alabama, Ole Miss. They've got Florida at 12. I'm with you. I think this is a better crew than people give it credit for. And Auburn at number 14, which is a group that certainly Hugh Freeze will make better over the next few years.
Brent, tell us what's going on with the San Diego State Aztecs.
This is a really strange story. They had until June 30th to withdraw from the Mountain West or to pay $34 million. Then they asked for an extension. The Mountain West said no, and they took it as a withdrawal. And now the Mountain West has essentially kicked them out. And for the moment, they have no real place to go. So we're not real sure what's going on here, where this is going. I mean, there were a lot of rumors about San Diego State being a part of the Pac-12, or maybe more of a long shot, the Big 12. But it's just a very odd situation. I mean, we haven't seen this in a while. In other words, if they wanted to get back to the Mountain West, I think they would have to pay the exit fee, when in reality they probably never technically had an exit. So it's we're following it, trying to keep up with it, and it's not easy to do.
Yeah, and we talk about this. It seems like every year before the season kicks off, Power 5 teams with the longest drought of not winning 9 games in a regular season. And the one team that has never done it is kind of surprising. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh yeah. Iowa State, you would think, would have done it, but they never have. Vanderbilt never has. Indiana, Purdue, and Maryland, which is interesting. Cal, Kansas, and Illinois. Now Kansas made some improvement, but they're not quite there yet. And Boston College and Texas Tech. So that's a long drought. I mean, you think about that a minute. They were, and if you're a fan base of a team like that, I mean, you've never experienced a 10-win season. You've never experienced winning a championship basically in your lifetime. That is a tough place to be, and some teams take for granted being in the playoffs every year, or going to a bowl game, or winning 10 games every year. So I mean, Bama's won 10 games 15 years in a row. So I mean, it's really amazing when you think about some of the teams that have never won 9 games in a regular season.
Well, the reason I brought up Iowa State is because Matt Campbell's still their coach, and he's always a hot item, it seems like, at the end of every year, but they can't get over the hump. They can't win the Big 12, and then they anyway, it's amazing they have never won 9 games.
Yes.
This is another interesting thing here. Number of games projected as a favorite in the 2023 season. This first line here, Brent, there's a team that jumps out, and they have a brand new coach who I'm a big fan of. But aren't you surprised at the Louisville Cardinals?
Yeah. Yes, I am too. But they've got a lot of excitement. They've got a lot of enthusiasm about what's going on. No surprise that Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, and Washington have been predicted to win, or not to win necessarily, but at least to be the favorite. So I think that tells you something. I mean, look, I'm not a gambler, but I will say this: Las Vegas knows things. So that's probably something, Shane, that we need to pay attention to.
Well, so I'm assuming, and of course I do not follow the ACC very closely. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I am assuming the Louisville Cardinals do not play the Clemson Tigers or Florida State.
Well, here's their schedule: Georgia Tech, Murray State, Indiana, Boston College, at NC State, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh on the road, Duke, Virginia Tech, Virginia, at Miami, and then they play Kentucky. Now Jeff Brom is their new coach. He's the favorite son there. So that schedule gives you an indication of that too. Now, let me just say this real quick, and this is pretty much in all the magazines. In Athlon, Virginia Tech is 12. In Lenny's, Virginia Tech is 12. Phil Steele, Virginia Tech is 12. Would you ever, especially with Frank Beamer being there, and we won't belabor the point here, but Shane, would you have ever believed that Virginia Tech basically has fallen off the map and just trying to get some kind of a relevance at this point?
Yeah, that's it. It is crazy. I didn't realize that. Another team here they're favored in 9 of their 12 games are the Rice Owls. Who in the hell are they playing? Because I didn't think Rice was very good. Brent, are you going to be going to the evening with Quinn Ewers out in Austin,
no.
Texas?
Yeah, no, but I put this in here because this is very interesting. Okay, if you've ever wondered what a NIL event would be, here's an example of it. Now, Quinn Ewers, obviously the Texas quarterback, is hosting a meet and greet. Okay, here are tickets. A VIP ticket is, I'm not sure where they came up with the figures, but we're going with them. VIP ticket is $2,300. Ticket for adults is $283. And a ticket for kids is $38. Now, one thing I do like about this, if you're going to have an NIL, have something that will help someone else, and the proceeds for this are supposed to benefit merging vets and players. Now, I don't know what that is, but some of the better NILs, Shane, have got a stipulation in them to where not everything goes into the player's pocket. There's some of that money that's going to go help someone else. That's obvious what's going on here. But I just thought our listeners would enjoy hearing what an NIL event is like and how much tickets are costing.
Yeah. Brent, let me ask you this question. Who do you think out of all the fan bases, alumni across the country, and I mean, I'm just guessing, I'm asking you to guess here. What schools do you think have the most money? I mean, my top 3 would be Notre Dame, Texas, and Texas A&M. Did we lose Brent?
No, I'm. That's an interesting question. Texas, I agree with that.
Well, A&M's got a ton of money too.
Yeah, they do. There's no doubt about that. A&M is a tremendous amount of money, and I know there are figures out about that as far as who grosses the most money. Too. I mean, you've got to believe that certainly Georgia's going up the ladder with this. I think Alabama probably would be too. And I'm trying to think in the ACC, it's not FSU.
North Carolina.
That's his first team that comes to mind to me would be North Carolina. So Michigan's probably.
Yeah. Dan says Harvard has the largest endowment fund, and Andy says Michigan has money. Yeah, I'm just thinking from a athletic standpoint because A&M can build anything, anytime, and as fast as anybody in the country. It seems like they just continually build stuff there. And I was just thinking about this the other day when we're talking about redoing our stadium, how quickly they redo stuff out there and how much money they have. And I was like, well, I wonder who. I mean, we'll never know, but yeah, Michigan, Notre Dame, A&M, Texas, those schools have a ton of money. Alan has a question here on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Law. He says, QB, I know you don't like talking about recruiting, but is there any truth to Florida rating in the top 3 in recruitment and Alabama not even making the top 25? No, part of that is true. Florida is in the top 3, but Alabama is like number 2.
Yeah.
And that's for the 2024 class. And then Andy had a question for you on Facebook Live brought to you by Mellon Law. He says, Brent, were you surprised that Gene Wojciechowski and David Pollack were let go by ESPN?
Yes, to a degree. And I don't know what the criteria would be that they, where they make their decisions on that. Wojciechowski was really good. I was very impressed with what he did. Obviously, when you've got someone who's on game day, those are guys that you really wonder about, that you would think would be there forever, frankly. So that is very odd that is going on. And again, they just had a bloodletting, frankly. But see, the part of the problem is we are focused on, and rightfully so, for what we do, college football. But ESPN has so many plates spinning, and they have grossly overpaid for the NBA, which is their fault. Look, I'm not saying the NBA is not important, but they just overpaid for being able to have the NBA. So because of that, that's a problem with them. And unfortunately, some of these folks, and they're good people, have been let go. But see, ESPN has had waves of this. And it makes you wonder, I won't belabor the point here too, but I mean, I've been told, and I'm not saying this is gospel, but that ESPN, and if this keeps going on, in 5 to 10 years, maybe more streaming than they are linear, or having the events that we see on TV. So that will be fascinating to see what's happening. I also looked up Florida's 5 in rivals, and Alabama in rivals right now is 31. Now, believe me, that means absolutely nothing because Alabama can have a blitz. And before it's over, there'll be 1, 2, or 3. So take recruiting rankings this time of year with a grain of salt. But yes, Florida's 5 in rivals, and Florida's been around number 2 and on 3.
Yeah. So Dan does a lot of research for us here. We appreciate it, Dan. He says here that he's talking about money, I guess. Texas is number 2, A&M number 7, Michigan 9, Notre Dame 12, and Vandy at 23rd. Wow. Come on, Vandy, spend some money on facilities. They are building a new basketball practice facility in one of the end zones of their football stadium. So very interesting. We got a text on the Titan Mar text line from Pat in Mobile, Alabama. Says he's been a season ticket holder of the Tide for 40 plus years. What the hell is he listening to my show for then? We appreciate you listening, Pat. He's been a season ticket holder for 40 plus years. He says he's very concerned about his quarterback play this year. Brent, can you give him some confidence in the quarterbacks that may play for Alabama?
Yeah, Jalen Milroe is doing fine from what I understand, but Shane and I both really don't think that he is a very good quarterback. I mean, he's improved. I give him credit for that. He's a dual threat. Ty Simpson, who I think is going to be the face of the program sooner than later, and Tyler Buckner, the kid from Notre Dame. But you really don't bring these guys in to have them sit on the bench. So there's some speculation. We won't know until August. But I will give you some hope because I think the offensive line is going to be better. The running backs are going to be really good. This Justin Haynes, who's a freshman, is very good. I think the receivers will be coming around. The defense is going to be better by leaps and bounds. With Kevin Steele as the offensive coordinator, Tommy Reese coming over from Notre Dame. I think will be fine for the offense. But, and again, we appreciate him listening. And I think the reality is if they can find a quarterback, that they'll have a lot of pieces fall in place. But if you're an Alabama fan, don't panic if LSU's picked to win the West. I think they probably will be. That's mainly because of the quarterback situation. Jalen Daniels being the LSU quarterback, and Alabama doesn't have one yet.
Ruzoga State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. All right, Brent, real quick, we'll start around the league. You just mentioned a bunch of Alabama stuff. They did pick up a DB out of Tampa, Florida that the Gators were in the hunt for.
Yeah, Jameer Grimsley is who Shane is talking about. Michigan was in there too. He was the number 11 cornerback on 3. And Bama has done very well in that Tampa, Orlando area in the past.
The Auburn Tigers. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk since they're talking about reducing capacity of the swamp. People are upset, blah blah blah, and no other schools are really reducing capacity that we're aware of. And I was one of those guys probably about 15 or 20 years ago, Brent. I was wanting to build an upper deck on the east side of Ben Hill Griffin State, but you couldn't because of where it is with Florida Gym. They couldn't construct it. But now Auburn has sold out all its season tickets. A lot of people are excited about Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, 63,500 season tickets. Now, that's not the capacity of the stadium, but those are the tickets that are available. It doesn't count student tickets, and this breaks a record of 62.9 that they set in 2014. Georgia game's already sold out, as you can imagine. There is a lot of excitement at Auburn. They're doing fine in recruiting, but Hugh Freeze has basically turned that roster over. And Shane, as you and I've talked before, he really needed to do that.
Yes, for sure. Speaking of, there's been a report, and I've seen it all over Twitter, that some assistant coach, or maybe it was a head coach in the Southeastern Conference, made a statement to some beat writer or something saying how, Billy Napier took over a non-SEC roster, which we all knew that. It wasn't up to Florida standards.
Right.
I'm curious what people think, and I don't know Auburn's roster very well, but we just know where Auburn has been the last few years.
Yes.
I wonder how bad their roster is compared to what it should be like in the SEC.
It's not very good. And they've had nearly a 50% overhaul in less than 7 months. They think in other words, some of the beat writers would tell you they had a 2 or 3 win roster, and now they may have a 7 or 8 win roster. And they had to redo the offensive line because Gus Malzahn and Brian Harsin either would not or could not recruit offensive linemen. So that was big for them. They still really don't have a quarterback, and their wide receivers aren't very good. So it's going to take some time for Auburn, but Freeze will get that done, and he's done a good job of getting them much more competitive for this coming season.
What's going on with the Gators in Gainesville?
Well, I think a lot of people probably saw Jalen Kitna being charged, and it's been down to 2 misdemeanors. They worked out a plea deal in that. That's a difficult situation, to say the least. I just hope that he has got his life together and can move on from here. Not enough's been said. We talked about this on First Coast News the other night about how well they have done in beefing up the defensive line with guys like Cam Jackson, Caleb Banks, along with Desmond Watson and Chris McClellan, for instance. So I think that group may be a lot better possibly than people think it is. And I've been very up front here saying that I think defensively that they will be much improved with Armstrong as the offensive coordinator. We will see, but they don't get enough credit for the work they've done.
Yeah, I think Alston's going to do a fine job. Boy, he's young too, but I like his energy he brings. But they're getting the type of players they need. Front seven's been pitiful the last 4 or 5 years. Brent, the Georgia Bulldogs, we all know the stories going on up there that came out in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Don't you think this is going to be something that every time Georgia plays a game on TV, there's going to be, these stories about this player, that player? Do you think this can have any kind of effect throughout the year? We know the talent, but again, I've told people 1,000 times, nobody want to give Stetson Bennett any love and the credit of a player that he is. I don't care how old he was or any of that stuff. They're going to miss that dude. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. Look, I'm talking to some beat writers about this, and their comment was, when you've got what's going on at Georgia with, and again, without reviewing everything, Georgia's had a lot of problems with players and speeding and automobiles. They've also had problems, as detailed from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, about players that have abused women in some way. And folks need to look at that story. And the beat writers have told me the concern here is not so much complacency, but what's happening at Georgia with these things, is that a indication of some real problems within the program? We don't know that yet. I'm not saying that yet, but Shane, it really does make you wonder how all this stuff at some point, will it affect how their season plays out? We don't know, but it's really worth watching.
Yeah. Now, a lot of this kind of off the field stuff is not going to have anything to do with the talent that they put on the field. We know they're going to be very good, but you're breaking in a new quarterback. You got a new offensive coordinator calling plays. You don't have that older guy behind center with the leadership. I think it's going to be a dicey year for them. LSU has had a tremendous year in their athletic program. Some people say maybe it's one of the best in the history of the NCAA. Good things happening in Baton Rouge right now.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, it is their past year. I mean, being able to win championships in baseball, women's basketball, to be able to get to Atlanta in football. Scott Woodward is a really good AD. He hires a lot of good people, and that has been really impressive for them. Ethan Callaway from North Carolina is committed to them, so they're doing fine in recruiting. Now, it says Florida, Penn State, and Georgia, among others, were involved with him, but we'll see. But I just wanted to throw that out. Yeah, but LSU's had a wonderful season.
I want to jump down real quick to the Tennessee Vols. A lot of people are expecting them to have a big year. I'm one who thinks they'll be okay. I don't think they win. Their win total set at 9.5. I don't think they get to that. They got a tough stretch here, man. They're at Florida. I mean, at Alabama, Georgia, at Florida, Texas A&M, and at Kentucky. Brent, they could lose all of those.
They could. There's no doubt about that. And I'm going to throw this out too. They played Texas San Antonio.
Look out for the Roadrunners.
And some people are laughing about that, but I guarantee you, people need to look at them. Jeff Traylor, the coach, in his fourth season. Last year they were 11-3. They were 8-0 in Conference USA. I won't list all the players, but their quarterback. Have you seen their quarterback, Shane?
Frank it's Frank Harris. He's been playing for like 9 years. Seriously, he's like a 7 or 8 year senior.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
very good player.
Last year, 4,000 yards, 32 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
I'm calling upset right now. Is that their opener?
No, they've got that's a game they've got later on in the year.
Oh, okay.
But it's between a couple of SEC games, so they've got to be very careful in that game, because that could be a real problem for them.
Yeah, for sure. If they were playing in week 1, I'd love the Roadrunners in that one. Brent, give us a couple nuggets before we get you out of here and we get to Edgar Thompson.
Yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from Edgar. Also, wanted to mention, we mentioned at Texas A&M a little bit, Cam Coleman, who's a 5-star wide receiver, has committed to A&M. Gee whiz, and they needed another one. He's from Phoenix City, Alabama, which is near Auburn. So their recruiting has gone very well too. ACC Media Days coming up the week after SEC Media Days. Ford State has a commit from Elijah Moore, who is a 4-star wide receiver. Their offensive line at FSU has 207 starts. That is the most of anybody, most of any team. So keep that in mind. And I don't know if we talked about this enough, and I'll end with this. Miami, with Shannon Dawson as their offensive coordinator, is going to the air raid. The air raid, as we know, is from Hal Mumme and Mike Leach. Now, Tyler Van Dyke needs to improve on his 62% passing, but they're going to use the back, so that might improve that a little bit. So just something to look at Miami. That will be very interesting, Shane, to see if that offense works for them.
Yes, no doubt about it. Brent, great stuff as always. Have a tremendous weekend, and we'll talk to you next week, my man.
Can't wait, bud. Take care. Thanks.
That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst, joins us on the Titan More Hotline. Going to take a quick timeout. Come back. We'll have Edgar Thompson. He's got a lot of stuff to talk about, Gator related. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics, 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration points where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Visors Rooftop, Bass Pro Shops, Dave & Buster's, Fat Tuesday, Starbucks, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, the hottest restaurant in Florida in the heart of Gator Nation. That's Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Going to head to the Titan More Hotline now. We're joined by Orlando Sentinels, Edgar Thompson. Good morning, Edgar. How you doing, my man?
Doing fine, Shane. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's start first. Yesterday, because I know you were at Trinity Thomas's press conference. She's coming back to be an assistant student coach, get another master's degree, but she's shooting for the Olympics. Now, I don't know anything about gymnastics, but is she going to be really old if she makes this team? Because it seems like usually the Olympic girls are like 15 years old.
Yeah, the sport has changed a good bit over the years from the time when you had like the Dominique Mocianos or whatever. Remember her? Morciano? She was like 70 pounds on that 2016 team, 14. Carrie Strug. That's the team a lot of people still remember because it was so dramatic winning it. You remember that one, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
It was phenomenal. Those young women were teeny little malnourished girls. They were. There was a book called Girls in Pretty Boxes by Joan Ryan, San Francisco Examiner columnist of many years, that was very controversial about the path to being a great gymnast. And that's changed. These young women are much healthier. They eat. They train differently, and they're older, and they take care of their bodies differently. And Trinity even said yesterday, you really have to take care of your body to get to the point where you're 22. She just turned 22, and you're still viable. Simone Biles is going to try to compete, and she's 26, I believe. So
oh, wow.
It is older. Now, Trinity has some headwinds here to do this. She's got to stay healthy for one, and that was the issue this past spring. And in 2020, she sprained both her ankles severely, I think, on the uneven bars. I don't remember it all. I know the history a little bit. And she wasn't able to try to make the team then. But it's extremely competitive. And some of the competition is coming from her own teammates, Leanne Wong, for one, who was an alternate, I believe, on the last team, and Kayla DiCello, the freshman phenom from last year, who's amazing. And so, yes, Trinity certainly has a shot. You got to think on the floor at the very least. I mean, she's going for the all-around, of course, but even competing in one event you can do. And she's the queen of the floor. We've seen it. She's unbelievable. She's unbelievable at all the events. Mm-hmm. So the floor, here's the last thing, Shane, on it. And this is stuff I'm just learning because being around it a little bit this year, I really got into this team in the last year or so, and mainly because of Trinity. She's just an unbelievable representative of the University of Florida. She's unreal. And she handles herself so well. She's so engaging, and she's so talented. And you have to learn these moves. There's different moves at the elite level, and the programs are more demanding. College, you can do 2 or 3 passes on the floor, but in the internationals, you got to do 3 or 4 passes, and you have to perform some moves that she's done in the past at the elite level, but you have to really, it just gets harder, as it should. But so she's going to have to learn some things. But first and foremost, she has to get healthy because she's still not completely healthy. She had a strain in her lower leg, calf Achilles, it looks like, and she did not want to pop her. She didn't want to pop her Achilles tendon, which would be career ending and really damaging for your life, really, if you damage one of those. And she was unable to compete at the highest level for the NCAAs, which was disappointing because I think if she had been 100% healthy, if you look at the numbers and crunch them, they would have won it.
Yeah, I was there, by the way. Dan says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, DiCello will not compete next season for the Gators because she's getting ready for the Olympics as well. Yeah. So, congratulations to her for coming back. And good luck to all those girls trying to make the Olympic team.
I mean, it's hard.
Jalen Kidd-
She's talking about going to like the showcase events. I mean, think about it. You're going in, there's probably 15 of them. I mean, it's pretty intense pressure, man. And just performing those routines, the mental toughness, man. I mean, I know you like the gymnastics, and it's just amazing. And you were a top athlete.
It freaks me out when I watch those things. I mean, what they do is just unbelievable. It scares the hell out of me.
Well, DiCello's, the way she mounts the balance beam, she does that little flip, and she's like, literally, her chin is like skimming right over the beam. She's going to knock her teeth out. It's like, they're courageous and talented and really underrated, I think, by the average person, and myself included, until I really started getting into it.
On Facebook Live here, brought to you by Melvin Law, Edgar Andy asks, what's your take on Jalen Kidney? Has to be the most fortunate guy on earth.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was at the trial yesterday and got a heads up this was going down. And was able to like kind of dig in on it a little more deeply than I did the first time, because we were all scrambling because it was so shocking when it happened in late November, early December. In fairness to the young man, I mean, the charges, a lot of people are just attributing this to John Kitna being an NFL quarterback, having money, having influence, and the young man being a football player and et cetera, and getting off because of all this. I'm not like a lawyer here, and I certainly do no investigating on this, but talking to people surrounding the case, and not just Ron Kozlowski, his attorney, but also talking to the assistant state attorney, public relations person, Dari Lloyd, and speaking to a sex crimes attorney in Gainesville, who I didn't quote in my story, but I did quote Dari. They did thorough forensic investigations of all this guy's devices, the laptop, the phone, etc. No additional images were found. 3 of the 4 images were of prepubescent girls, so they were post-pubescent young women. Now, they weren't of age. They might have been 15 or 16, but they're like Jalen was 19 at the time. This isn't abnormal behavior for a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old to be talking. I don't know what was going on, but it sounds like they looked at it and were like, this isn't like that abnormal. The 4th image was undetermined. They couldn't determine what it was. It was an image and no sex acts. And then the final piece is the young man went through extensive psychosexual psychiatric evaluation more than once. And they were determined that this young man is not a deviant in their opinion. And therefore, these charges went from felonies to 2 misdemeanors. I certainly agree that I'm shocked it ended up where it ended up and landed where it did. But when you talk to the people, you're kind of like, okay, I kind of understand it. This wasn't a case. There was one with the Gators. I'm not mentioning names. Everyone knows. It was around this program 10 years, 15 years ago. And this was hundreds, if not thousands of images collected of this individual, and the man served 10 years plus in prison. This isn't the same thing. And people are making these parallels, and it's probably not fair to the kid, but look, the kid is never going to be out from under this. It's going to follow him for the rest of his life, and we'll see what he makes of it.
Yes, indeed. Silverback Concrete is a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. Edgar Thompson from the Orlando Sentinel. A few more minutes we'll hear with him here. We have a text on the Titan Mart text line, and if you want to text the program, it's 352-353-7465. It's from Jonathan in Memphis, Tennessee. He says, Edgar, I want to get your thoughts on the renovations of the swamp.
Okay. It's about time.
What are you hearing?
It's about time is my first comment. Right? I mean, the concourse and some of the stuff, the bathrooms, all these things needed to be upgraded a while ago. But in fairness, Scott Strickland's had this long range vision of facility upgrades that's been pretty amazing. And it began with Jeremy Foley, with the indoor practice facility right at the end of his tenure, then the Hawkins Academic Center, and then on the books was also the softball renovations. Jeremy had a different vision than Scott, who kind of moved in a different direction and built a new baseball stadium rather than renovating the old one, and then did the standalone, the Heavener football facility that just opened. And plus they redid the softball, excuse me, not softball, the track, the soccer and lacrosse they redid. They're redoing the track. I mean, everything's being touched. Now the swamp, though, is the big one. And it's going to be the most expensive one, the most high profile one, and maybe the most necessary one in some ways, because that's where they make the most money. They get the biggest crowds, and you need to serve these people. And the concourses are going to be massively expanded. Scott wants it where you can walk the entire, would it be circumference of the stadium?
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the right word, but, and see the field at all times. He wants open spaces, gathering spaces. He doesn't want it to be all like in the seats. Chair backs versus shoving people onto 20, inch spaces on bleachers. And it's going to reduce capacity. And I know that's not going to be popular, but it's going to make for a better experience ultimately for the people that are in the swamp. And they're just going to redo everything. It's going to be a complete overhaul of the entire facility. 400 million is ultimately ultra conservative. It's going to be more than that.
It's going to be way more than that. So my question, and I don't know if you've heard this, we've talked about it ever since it's come out publicly on this program. There's no way that when they start this, and I don't know what year they're going to start it, that it's going to cause up. But what I'm saying is there's no way that they're going to be having so much construction going on during the football season that we're not going to be able to play there. We have to play our games here, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, because the impact on the community.
Yeah.
So many businesses and people. I don't even know the ultimate statistics on what COVID did to certain local businesses and things, but there were a number of them that didn't survive. And this has happened nationwide. I mean, you're hearing like 20-30% of restaurants and this and that closed. That happened in Gainesville to a degree. And you can't basically have a 2-year period where local businesses lose 6 to 7 home football games. Those are major weekends for these places, hotels, restaurants, etc. You know that. You've been around this team forever. So that needs to continue, and that's front of mind with Scott now.
Dan wants to know, Edgar, will it all be funded by boosters?
I mean, they're going to bond, a good bit of this and take on debt. And they have a lot of debt right now with all these projects they're doing, but certainly they will take as much money as people want to give. And, this is the interesting dynamic in the age of NIL. Is like, where do you give your money? Do you want good players? Do you want good facilities? Scott Strickland's comment was, he was asked, if someone wants to give you $100 and is it NIL or is it facilities? What do you tell them? He goes, I tell them to try to find another $100. That's where they're at. They need, hey, look, the people that are able to do it, they hope step up and help.
Another text here on the Titan Mart text line from Jimmy. Jimmy says, do you think they reduce a lot of the capacity? Have you heard like how many seats they plan to take out?
I haven't heard, but I mean, my God, it's going to go down to at least 80, I would guess, from 88 plus.
So that's about 8. I think it's like about 8 to 10,000 seats you think they'll take out.
Yeah, and I would say yes. I don't know where it lands. I mean, it could be 73, it could be 78, it could be 15, it could be 10. It's gonna be something though, and that's just gonna make for a better experience with people that go. But everything, the prices are gonna go up. Everything. It's professional football, man. It's what it is, and they're paying the players now, so it's all professional, or they're paying them above board now.
Thomas says, do you think Billy will have any say on the upgrade, or is this just a Strickland project? It's going to be both, but they're going to have a damn committee. They'll have some people from Gator Booster. They're going to have, it's not just one guy saying this is what we're going to do. They're going to meet with all these damn firms and figure out the best thing. And here's what I said I would do if I was in charge. Now, I have no background of this, but just as a spectator, former player, this is what I would love to happen. From I'm not worried about the east side. That's the visiting side. That's where the students are. They can sit their asses on the damn bleachers. Okay. I would go lower bowl to that upper mezzanine, that middle mezzanine. I would chair back everything. So you're going to take some seats out. That's basically from the north end zone to the south end zone. But the south end zone mezzanine, I'd have a few, or lower bowl, I should say, I'd have a few chair backs. But that section of the tunnel where the Gators run out of, I'm putting some kind of really nice area, whether it's tables, standing area for recruits and their families, and the other side for former players. Okay. That's all I would do to the seating part. Now, I know you're going to do the scoreboard, the sound system, the concourses, the bathroom, but I think that would still keep the integrity or just the atmosphere of the swamp because it's right on top of you. I wouldn't do a damn thing to the other side of the stadium. That's the visiting side. Now, I know parents of the players sit over there. You may put a couple chair backs for them, but that's what I would do.
Yeah, well, they might ultimately land there. I'll tell you this. You mentioned the atmosphere and integrity. This is interesting. I told you I was going to tell you this beforehand, before we got on here. So this Florida field was built in 1930. Amazingly, 8 of the 14 schools in the SEC have stadiums that are older. Mm-hmm. Davis Wade Stadium, Mississippi State's the oldest. That's crazy, 1914. Anyway, they built the swamp in 1930, and they didn't build it around a track. Track and field in the 20s was bigger than football, okay? That was back when horse racing and baseball and boxing and all that, and that went on into the first half of the century. Those were all bigger sports than basketball and football. NFL was nothing until like the 50s, Johnny U and stuff, right? So college football was just starting out. So they didn't build it around a track, which was unique, and put the stands right on the edge of the field. That's why the swamp is so special. You are right there. And then all the renovations just built this vertical, acoustic dome almost, where it's phenomenal. When the swamp is rolling, it's like nothing. And they are determined, I'm sure, to keep that, because you can't lose that. Now you're going to lose some fans. 8,000 can still rock the place, but they got to maintain that acoustical integrity and all that stuff that you're talking about too.
Yeah, David, last thing before we get you out of here. David says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Melon, maybe if Florida was smarter with legacy admissions, we'd be more likely to give aggressively. And I wanted to bring that up. I saw this yesterday on Twitter, the student acceptance rates at the SEC schools. 7% at Vandy, 30% at Florida, 40% at Georgia, 62% South Carolina. And then you get down here to the bottom, student acceptance rate at Alabama, 79%, Arkansas, 83%, Ole Miss, 90%, Kentucky, 94%. So basically, if you have a heartbeat, you can get into those schools. But Florida's right there, right behind Vanderbilt. So that's a whole nother topic that just pisses me off.
Probably a lot of people, they get more applicants, and you only have so many you can take.
Well, no, I mean, literally.
Are you talking legacy? What are you saying?
No. This is just
30%?
student. This is just if this is just student acceptance rate. If you send your admissions to Alabama, Arkansas, Ole Miss, and Kentucky, you are getting in. It don't matter what your grades are, pretty much. They will accept anybody. I know that for a fact. It's hard to get in here. It doesn't, even if, this is the old story. Ben Hill Griffin's granddaughter got denied here several years ago. So it's ridiculous. They prefer out of country, out of state students, and it's killed the student body coming to games. Killed it. Edgar, we're out of time, my man.
Interesting insight there. We'll steal that next week on our pod.
Yes. To have your people do some research on that, but there are so
My
many.
people.
My two kids didn't even get accepted.
I
And
thought-
they made
I
like
thought
30
Nick
something
went-
on the
I thought Nick went there.
Luke.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he got in because of football.
Oh, he didn't get into the. Yeah, that didn't make sense.
Yes. And he was a 4.5 with a 30 something on the ACT. I mean, it's crazy. So
It's
anyway,
very competitive university to get into.
yeah, but it's not though. When you have kids that want to, majority of the student body in Tallahassee and UCF and USF are legacy kids that are tremendous students, but they don't meet the stupid criteria that Florida makes them have. It's stupid. It really is. And that's hurt our athletic programs. And that's all that matters. So, Edgar, good stuff as always. We appreciate your time, my man.
Thanks, Shane. See you guys.
Yeah. That's going to do it for today's program. Remember, we got our contest going on. Have people follow our program, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.